you didn't plan on waking up in a totalitarian state, but here you are. So the last TikTok I posted, I discussed the fact that the U.S. now is in the position of being a vassal state to Russia, and I talked about the degradation of rights that you're going to see over the next little while. It's already underway, and the destruction of the government that's taking place under Elon Musk and Donald Trump. And a lot of people were understandably upset about it and wondering what they can do. And people were asking me, what can I do? And I don't really know that I'm in the position to tell people what to do, because everybody's in their own personal circumstance. But if your nation is falling to a totalitarian white supremacist state, I think you've got an obligation to fight back. And a lot of people, of course, didn't vote for it. But it's not just an issue of voting. You have to do other things. Now, the number one thing you've got to do, of course, is survive, right? That's the first thing, and you've got to do that for the sake of yourself. And if you survive, then you can help others and help your family. But there's also ways that you can push back, and you absolutely should do it in the traditional, tried and true, safe ways, because that is going to be the ones that are the hardest for the state to persecute you for. So number one, think of the position of power that the state governments are in, okay? The courts are basically being gutted. We have no idea whether or not Trump will abide by any court orders. And of course, he's already stocked the Supreme Court such that you have no idea whether or not they are going to defend the Constitution. Some of the judges there probably feel sick about it, but then we've got Clarence Thomas and Alito, who are obviously just going to go with Trump. And I think you can safely say that he's going to succeed on a lot of things. But if they're not successful, they're going to have to try and seek court orders, and then somebody's going to have to enforce it. I don't know how that's going to play out, but the state governments actually have quite a bit of power. And think of the stronger state governments like California or New York. Those states are in a position to push back. So number one thing that you can do right now is support your state government and encourage them to use the legal, lawful means, which is to sue, to continue to enforce the law. Lots of the laws that Trump and Musk are flagrantly ignoring and more or less attacking are things that were lawfully passed by your government and signed into law. And so they are breaking the law by not abiding by it. And of course, Trump has been given by the Supreme Court the power to break the law so long as he's doing it as part of his job. Well, you might be able to characterize it as being outside of his job. So you want to encourage those state governments to be able to litigate, and you want to support your state governments anyway. And probably the safest place is to live in those states if you're worried about that. Engage in grassroots organizations. There's all these organizations that are out there. You can find them on the internet. Here's the thing about a totalitarian state. They struggle with communication, okay? So Musk has taken over X, right? And we know he uses that as just a propaganda network. I cannot believe that any Canadian government or media are still on that website, on X, on Twitter. Get rid of that, okay? You don't want to help Musk out, whatever you do. But use other areas where you can freely express on the internet to find these other organizations, get involved with them, contact them, engage with them, ask them what they need to do, and go out to events that they do. This is your your right of freedom of speech, which still exists, although Musk has been threatening people, saying that if they criticize the government, that they're coming after them. I think you're still pretty safe in most of the state governments to go out there and express your right. I know that they're keeping track, and I know that they're getting your personal data, and I know that Musk is using X and probably Teslas to gather information to use against people. But still, if you're in that position and you feel you're personally strong enough to do it, get out there and exercise both your right to engage in grassroots activity, but also vote. Right? Vote in all your local elections, run for office if you're available to do it. Have some courage and do that, because you're less likely to be persecuted. Now, the reality is, if you are white, you're less likely to be persecuted. And white women, they'll take away your right to control your own body, but they're scared of you, okay? And they're more scared of you than you are of them. And so if you're in that position and you are a white woman who wishes to push back here, then you are one of the most powerful people to do it. You will find that a lot of people are either not courageous or they don't feel the impetus because they know it's not threatening them. And the wealthy white people in the US are not going to feel it the same way as everybody else. So in my view, you've got a duty to step up and do that. If you look at Russia and you look at the protests at the beginning of the war, and as they were clamping down in their totalitarian state, one of the things that they really struggled with was how they were going to deal with mothers out there talking about their children going to war, their husbands going to war, because they're not just going to jail them. They're not going to, violently arrest them. There may be some repercussions down the road for them, for those people who spoke out, but most of the time, you're probably pretty safe if you're in that situation. So, as I say, it's part of your duty, in my view. And as I say, I also think you're complicit if you don't speak out. There still are enough rights being protected in the U.S. right now, and you still have an opportunity to try and protect your democracy. This is something that is still available for you, but you do have to step up and do it, because, as I say, you've slipped into the state, a totalitarian state. This is with respect to the federal government. Now, the division of states' powers are a thing that protects you, and you're safest to speak out when you're in a blue state where you can rely at least upon the state to protect you. So those are the things that I would consider. Again, I'm sorry that I upset people with my previous video, but if you're not clear-eyed about this, if you're not looking at this straight on and recognizing it for what it is, you're not going to be in a position to deal with it. So first things first, take care of yourself, take care of your family, and then get out there and do what you need to do to push back.